One. All right, guys, welcome back to the Adam Peter Fitness Podcast. Today on the show, I have Joe Borenstein, who, if any of you guys are powerlifting, unless you live under a rock, you're probably very aware of Joe, mainly for his rapid progress as an 83 kilo lifter. I believe that you just hit like something crazy in training, like an 876 kilo total at
Yeah, I did.
83, which is insane. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting and what I like doing is like I like pulling up people's open powerlifting or athletes and kind of seeing their rate of progress over time. Because if you look at Joe's starting spot, nothing special. Like no offense, a 337 dots is not that impressive. And then he's risen up to a 584. So I kind of want to ask like what really, I guess, changed for you along the line? Because like you had a really fast progression from basically a 372 dots to 463 in the same weight class with only
Yep.
like a 5 pound body weight difference. Um, what sort of kind of contributed to that, I guess, that initial progress?
Well, just in the same weight class, I'd say, well, first off, puberty, right? Like I was 15 at my first meet, and then leaving the weight class, I was 21. So that's 6 years of me just maturing as a human. So right off the bat, I will be getting stronger through that. I also grew in height, I grew in width, I grew in muscle mass. So just right there, then and there, like just maturing as a human, like I said, and then just optimizing recovery and learning how to train, right? So when I first started competing, I had no idea what powerlifting even was. Only reason I started is because I saw some records for the bench press, and I was like, well, I can beat that. It was a local, like, Florida state record, whatever. But still, like, I thought it was cool. I thought I'll put my name up there and collect some records. And on my very first meet, I actually didn't know we were supposed to squat. So I didn't have any knee sleeves on. I had like a pair of like Adidas NMDs, like running shoes, and I still ended up PRing the squat, which was funny. But yeah, I was very clueless about what the sport even was at first. So you can even imagine like what my training was like. The progression, like periodization, was non-existent at the time. So I just went to the gym, did whatever I wanted. I treated like the squat, bench, and deadlift equally as the other lifts. So I went equally as hard on a squat compared to like a bicep curl or a lat pull down or a row or a dumbbell press. Like I
Mm.
thought all the exercises were equally important. So I just pushed everything to failure. And it got me strong for a little bit when I was like 14, 15, 16. But then as the years progressed, I started deep diving into like what periodization was or how to progress, And then over the time, getting more into powerlifting, looking at the other lifters around me, understanding that it's not just like a this isn't just to put up feats of strength. It's actual sport, right? There's competition. There's rivalries between lifters. So that really got me down the rabbit hole of trying to optimize my programming. And then later down the line, I was 17 years old. I met my coach. Funny story, it was he tried to beat the national record for a teen two. I ended up beating it. His friend started shit talking me on Instagram. But then we started bonding back and forth. And then his friend basically introduced me to my now coach. His name is Luke Eckerly. And we hit it off. He offered to coach me for free because he saw the talent I had. And he basically he was a lot smarter than me at the time as well. He's a genius of a child. Like, well, he's not even a child anymore, but he's still younger than me. He's like a couple months younger, but he's in school right now to become a neurosurgeon. So you can imagine like this kid's IQ. So I definitely trusted him to take over my programming or the lack thereof of my programming at the time. And he basically gave me a lot of fundamentals. And then that partnership just blossomed, and we both started deep diving into powerlifting. And now we're just like it's like a mutual type of relationship where he doesn't just give me the program. It's not like, oh, here you go, you got this on the day. No, like we plan out macro cycles at a time, and we do everything down to the accessory, to the rep schemes, to the ranges for months on end, right? Because in my training, well, we presume that we're going to be healthy and progress, but we've optimized everything around training to understand what's happening in training. And obviously, we're not going to be able to, or the average person is not going to be able to program for a block 4 months later, right? It's very hard that way. But for someone that is optimizing everything down to the T, we're almost being able to predict how we're going to feel in the next macro or the next block. So it's about optimizing everything. That's what got me pretty far in this sport, and then obviously deep diving into powerlifting and just understanding like how to progress and like periodization as a whole.
think there's a lot of good gems there. I think the first thing is mentioning optimizing your lifestyle around training for progress. And I think that as a coach myself, I can tell you what I've had clients who have been making exceptional progress on one program, but then their lifestyle variables change. And what that program that was working that they were responding to it stops working. And what I found a lot of times, you look at the best athletes. The main reason, or one of the main reasons why they're able to make consistent progress is that they are able to keep their lifestyle variables in a good spot for a consistently long period of time. They're managing their sleep, their stress management. Like generally the best athletes tend to be like not super type A, like neurotic freak out over these little tiny details. They're just like, oh yeah, that happened in life. Anyways, I'm gonna go squat. Like, and let's just let it like roll off their back. Um, and just optimize everything around that because the reality is that like there's only so much that you can do and only so much progress that you can make with all of our own individual genetics if you're like not optimizing outside variables. Um, and so like I know I've heard you say, you get like 10 hours of sleep a night or something like that. And like you're making sure you're getting in, enough steps to promote recovery, but not too much for it's bleeding into your leg recovery. If you have, I guess like any sort of like lifestyle things that you do um right now you kind of have always done that you think have been really, really helpful for creating that environment to make training progress happen so consistently, rapidly.
I'd say it's a lot of it's the step counts that just helps with mobilization, keeping blood flow in the areas. Keep the hips loose while also increasing digestion. So maybe I'm able to consume a little more calories, get more nutrients that way, micronutrients at least. So I think just increasing step count, but keep it at a somewhat reasonable amount, right? You're not going to take 20,000 steps and expect to feel even better, right? There's obviously the law of diminishing returns. You're going to hit that point, and after that point, you're going to have some negative effects. So my average is around 9 to 10,000. Obviously, the heavier you get, generally the less steps you'll need because you're just carrying on more mass. But for the most part, an average weight male like myself, like between 74 to 93 kilo, that 8 to 10,000 range should be perfect. Also mobility routines. So I do mobility work 3 times a week usually, twice for my hips, my lower body, and then once for the upper, like the shoulders, chest. Nothing super intense. I'm not like trying to like kill myself in there, but just to like increase blood flow. I do this after I walk as well and get like a general warm up because I'm not gonna mobilize a cold muscle. But mobility work, I'm a big advocate for. It can help with pain relief and just feeling better the next day. And when, especially like after a big leg session or a big like SPD session, if I do mobility that night, I usually wake up in the morning feeling a lot better. So that's what I really advocate for, like I said. And then diet, whole foods is huge. I've seen the studies about, whey is equally optimal, whatever. But when I have a protein shake versus a steak, I'm telling you, I feel a lot better with that steak than a protein shake, even though the bioavailability of whey is considered, top notch, right? There's nothing better than it because of the amino acid profile, but whatever. I'm a big advocate for, like I said, whole foods, mobility, step count, and then nutrient timing as well, making sure that we're eating proper meals at certain times and keeping those meals consistent. Because sometimes if you change up the carb source, for example, then you may have a different outcome in the gym, like a complex carb from like a starchy potato versus like a gummy from like a sugar from a gummy, right, or some candy, right? Those are gonna have two different effects. Even though yes, carb is a carb, both are 4 calories, but still, like there's gonna have different effects in the gym. So keeping those standardized, keeping those consistent, and yeah, it's all about consistency. That's the biggest thing. And I know it's hard for most people because they have jobs, they may have kids, and it's hard to structure your life around a hobby. But for me, it's obviously not a hobby. This is my livelihood. This is my job. So it's a lot easier said than done for myself, especially, but oh, and for others as well. But I think just even edging yourself there or just pushing yourself slowly to become more optimal, you'll notice a huge improvement in your training. But yeah, to cap off everything I said, nutrient timing was huge for me. Keeping diet consistent, so the food sources itself, mobility work, keeping that consistent, step count, keeping that consistent, and then also training timing. I like to keep my workout schedule pretty consistent day to day. And I even like for my SPD, for example, I treat it like a meet day every single week. Like I wake up, I eat breakfast, I hydrate almost like I'm recomping from a weigh-in, and I make sure that I'm at my top set at around 2 to 2 hours or 2.5 hours after me recomping or eating breakfast, so to say. So I make it exactly like a comp day. The only difference is like my body weight's a little higher because I'm not gut cutting or laxative or water cutting or whatever. But still, I like to keep it as specific to competition days. So yeah, that's my go-to routine, and that's how I keep my consistency locked in.
I think it's interesting that you're talking about mobility, and I've honestly seen like I used to just, like really subscribe to like the whole like barbell medicine. Like you don't need to do like mobility work. Like mobility, if you're gonna hit depth on squat and bench press and hit all of these positions, like that's fine. But as I've gotten to be like older, especially, and then like more experienced and stronger, I think that becomes even more and more important because powerlifting, we kind of are so internally rotated, and an adaptation to powerlifting is like becoming more stiff. And that can cause some issues long term with like, your ability to get into a rack position on a squat comfortably. Benching and being able to actually tolerate like the training volume that you need to make progress as you get more and more advanced. Because I would argue that in most powerlifting coaching systems, the main thing is get intensity controlled to where the athlete can tolerate and progress from that, and then you slowly add volume, whereas whereas necessary to add on more stimulus to hopefully trigger more progress. But I guess what does your actual like mobility routine look like? Then you said it wasn't anything super intensive. I'd be curious to know what exactly that you do.
So I should just follow one on YouTube by a guy named Tom Merrick, I believe. It consists of some Cossack squats, hip 90-90s, a butterfly position, a static deep squat as well. I think I'm missing some other ones, but mainly it's a lot of like hip 90-90 work, and I sit deep into the stretch, trying to keep some extension in the low back and just sitting into that stretched leg, or I guess the stretched glute. I sit into those positions. I do around like 5 minutes each side, so I'm progressively sinking into it as well as I get more warm and more mobilized. So that's mainly for the hips, and then for the shoulders, I can't even like name the exercises I do, but like a lot of overhead stuff, a lot of pec stuff, stretching the lats, like crossing the arms, leaning into it on the ground. Yeah, I'm not sure the names of those exercises. It's more of like a routine that I follow from this YouTuber that I know of, and yeah, it works great for me. I've given to my athletes as well. They seem great improvements with pain relief and just overall stiffness. But yeah, I'm not pushing it to like truly increase like the elasticity of my muscles. Like it probably is, but that's not my go-to motto. Like when I'm trying to do it, I'm just doing it for the acute effects, and then those acute effects just like slowly add up over time and leak into my like the next day trainings, because I like doing it the night before. And of course, I still do like some
All
sort of
right.
mobility work on the session itself, but it's not nearly as intense or as long or as static as the ones I do the night before my lifts.
I think that's a great timing strategy. Making sure you're not like spending 30 minutes flopping around on the floor like a fish before you get under the bar. Like that's going to tire you out and likely lead to worse performance if you're doing it like away from training or like after training. That can be a really, really, really great tool. If you could actually like send me over the link of like what that video is, I would love to like link it in the show notes after. But in regards to like mindset around your training, it sounds like you take it pretty seriously, say like, this is your job. Um like what would you say like you see a lot of people lacking as far as a mindset that might be inhibiting their progress? Because I think that a lot of times when you look at elite athletes, a lot of times what separates them and not only is their genetics, but their how they approach just everything. Because like we all know that there's basic things that everyone needs to do in order to make progress, but how everyone approaches that is different. So for you, um, what are some big mindset things that or anything that you do to like up your mental game to help you be a better athlete?
So actually, I was talking to my coach about this today. So a lot of times what I see with athletes is they don't put the intent behind non-primary sessions. So for example, they'll lack with their diet or sleep because they have a quaternary bench and they're like, it's quaternary bench, super sub max, don't really care. You should be going into those sessions attacking it the same exact way as your primary days. Don't make sub max loads move heavy. There's no reason for that. You're overly exerting yourself. You're adding unnecessary fatigue to the body. So attack those sessions, treat it like your primaries. Obviously, the mental arousal is not going to be nearly as high because, at least for me, when I see heavy loads, my mind automatically locks in and I attack the weight. But you should still have that same, or try to have that same mindset with those sub max weights, and treat every single day with the equal importance. So just because it's a primary doesn't mean you have to sleep more compared to a quaternary. No, you should get the same amount of sleep both exact days. So that's like the biggest thing I see, especially with my athletes. They're like, "Oh, I got 6 hours of sleep, but don't worry, I'll get 8 hours before the primary squat." I'm like, that's not how it works, man. Like your
Yep.
fatigue is it's a whole weekly thing. You can't just be like, all right, I'm gonna sleep a lot, drop fatigue all the way to the bottom on a primary day and be good. No, your fatigue doesn't fluctuate rapidly and have super high peaks and super low valleys from a day-to-day basis. It's a week long thing. It's a block long thing. So yeah, it's more so the intent behind these sub max sessions, even accessories too. I see it all the time. People sandbagging their accessories. They can even record accessories, show it, and you can kind of make yourself fail earlier just by the mindset you have, right? The arousal of your mind is so important to how you attack the weight. And if you're not locked in mentally, you're going to hit failure or not be able to exert nearly as much force on these accessories. So it's all about locking in, finding that routine to see what works for you and how to lock in. Like some people like music, some people do like meditation, some people do prayer. Whatever the case is, find something that works for you you can use on a day-to-day basis. That'll help you lock in and bring that intent needed for accessory work and some max loads.
I love what you said about how every session matters. I think that people forget that like if there was like coaches are not going to put in stimulus like or volume in that is pointless because there's always going to be some sort of like fatigue trade-off with that. And really light loads do serve a really good purpose because like in my training model, like I do sort of trap tonnage just from like a sense of like the overall stimulus that the athlete is having because like I think we talk about like those concept of like rep range sensitivities. You know, you have someone like Sean Noriega who's really sensitive to high rep deadlifting. You put him down at like, you know, even like a 7x3, like it's a little bit of a different training like response if you change the loading, but you might have a very similar training response if you kept the loading very similar to if it was sevens or 7x3. Um, but like those small little sessions do add up and they are sort of increasing that baseline for you to peak on. And I think that that's one of the things I also really encourage my athletes in their training blocks. You know, people also have the mindset of like, oh, it's so light, it's week one, it's week two, it's week three. I'm like, no, like that's like those are the weeks that matter the most, but that's what sets you up for being strongest and you know, dropping fatigue. And then, you know, you can naturally build up to that pop in intensity. Like I made a YouTube video today about like how that week one is kind of like that standard bar speed you want to have for the most of your training blocks. And then say you have a 4 week block, week three is that anchor point. So you hit the minimum intensity required for you to be strong on that week four. Then you can consistently peak into that week four and be strongest. But if you are, you know, overshooting the beginning of your block, you're having that fast bar speed. You're not trying to maintain that bar speed as much as possible as you're increasing weight. That's you know not going to match your rate of adaptation. You're probably not going to be as strong at the end of the block. And I, you know, if you look at lots of these elite powerlifters, like for you, the end of your blocks always look pretty hard, which I think is like you probably respond well to that intensity. But I would probably expect that you have a very pulled back like beginning of your block because of how fatigue you probably feel from those heavy weights. And then you only start to feel good towards the end of the block. Is that like pretty accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. So, for example, like I'm in my Nats, the last block of Nats prep, right? I'm starting my Delo single at 606, right? So it's
Yep.
super sub max. Same thing with bench is a little less sub max because it doesn't really I don't get fatigued from it too much. It's a smaller muscle group. Bench recovers fast. So yeah, bench I keep it at around like 10 kilo spreads each week. So I think I'm taking like 175 this week. So pretty sub max still. But yeah, I like to not peak, but hit pretty heavy intensities on that last week. That pretty much trashes me for that week one. So I pull back drastically. And then week two, I'm still almost recovering. But fatigue is a lot lower. And then week three, it's my like priming week. Like you said, I have to hit a certain amount of intensity to peak me for that week four. So that's pretty much what I do. I did like a mini experiment with like a little very little macro. I did it was 2 block macro, 8 weeks. And I basically just pulled back my top ends. So I hit conservative doubles, They ended up moving at like an 8.5, 9. So that's conservative for me. But I basically prioritized the volume work or the back off work afterwards. And now I'm basically reaping those benefits that I
Right.
did on those two little blocks or that mini macro, like I said. And yeah, I'm definitely a lot more confident because, like, for example, like I did like a 250 kilo squat for back downs for a 3x5, and I've never touched over like 225 at that point. So I was like a 25 kilo PR for that many reps was pretty insane for me. So now every time I go into the bar with like 250, I'm like, oh shit, I've hit this for back down weight. I'm good. And then it's a lot mental, but also physiologically. I definitely made crazy adaptations from all that volume and overall load that I did hit in that mini macro, and it is translating now. But right after I completed that macro, my body was pretty cooked. The first block back for this basically last macro, so 2 blocks ago, my triples block, one of my worst blocks, even though, yes, I PR'd every single lift still because my overall baseline strength was so much higher. But I just felt like shit for the entire block. And I actually felt the best on the week 4 in terms of fatigue. The top end was still masked. Last block, when I hit the 876, fatigue was definitely a lot lower. Still, top end was not 100%. And I still PR'd like the squat double. And I hit a very, very strong bench. And deadlift kind of fumbled the bag on the second rep, didn't post it, whatever. Still hit 817 or 370 kilo. So yeah, progression, not progression, but the top end is being more exposed now because the fatigue is finally getting pulled back
Yeah.
from that mini macro, like I said, where I hammered the volume and I hammered the intensities. And now the way I treat my volume is a lot more sub max. I'm just letting my body, like I said, expose those top ends. And yeah, like I said, I'm reaping the benefits of that mini macro I just completed.
Interesting that you said that's a training approach that you use because I do that with some of my athletes for basically like they tend to get pretty cooked from like the pushing the top end and they like straight sets or ascending sets a lot. It's like and that raises their baseline for their top sets. And so they'll kind of like go back and forth between like a straight set or an ascending set block on their SPD for primaries. And then we'll go to the top set down set approach. And that seems to work really, really well for them. And I think that sometimes, like the powerlifting now guys have talked about this, Matt Corona and I've talked about this, but a lot of times, sometimes you do need to have that novelty. That's really what periodization is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we run into these roadblocks as coaches because we look at what was working in the past, and we look at like those blocks for like we PR'd, but we don't look at like what the entire macro might have looked like, or we don't consider that maybe because I'm stronger or because of the different lifestyle variables or whatever, that might not be working as well. And sometimes, for you, it probably was a little more exciting to push a little bit lighter weights and give your body like that little bit of a break from the top end, and the mental arousal that goes into those heavier top sets, and just like, ooh, this is what I can do for like, more of my straight sets or setting sets. And then because your baseline is so much higher, it's like you can pull back and on the average intensity and let that peak intensity go up a little bit more and get the benefits from that higher baseline. And that's one of the things I also tell like my athletes, and like even if you are doing like a top set down set approach, like I'm like your down sets are the majority of the stimulus. And this goes back into what you're talking about with the other days of training. Um, they all matter. That's all volume that just accumulates and it gets, a higher baseline. Because like if all we need to do is like every athlete focuses on the top set, if that was all that we needed to do, like to get stronger, we would just do top sets and then go home. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And that's why powerlifters spend, forever in the gym. Actually, how long do you usually spend like in the gym in terms of like weekly training time and like session frequency? Um,
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I got you. So today was my quaternary bench. So very, very easy. It was an hour and 10, 20 minutes maybe. So very quick today. Obviously, as the weights get more intense, I take a little longer between my sets. So maybe an hour and a half, an hour 45 by the end of the block. But that's like my quaternary bench. Secondary, squat, deadlift, they're on the same day. All my squats and deadlifts are on the same day. That session's like 3.5 hours because I have accessory work afterwards. Secondary and tertiary benches, I don't consider secondary, tertiary. They're very similar loads in volume. So I consider like the same importance. But yeah, those days are around 2.5 hours because the accessory work is a little more demanding. And then my primary SBD, the big session, is minimum 4.5 on the week 1. Maximum, it's been 7 hours. It's been a whole day event because especially when I hit that heavy volume mini macro like I was talking about, I'm resting 12 minutes per set. I have 4 sets of squat. I have to warm up to that squat. I have to do cardio beforehand. I also go to the gym right after eating. So I'm in the gym, like recomp, do my recomp phase. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in there recomping cardio, mobility, 12 minutes between sets, warming up to the sets. And then I take 30 minutes between each lift. So after my last back down the squat, I wait 30 for the bench. I bring so much food with me that day. Like I
Yeah.
treat it like a true, like, 8 hour work day. And then for bench press, same thing, 10, 12 minutes per set. I have 6 sets of bench. Do the math on that. Deadlift, I have 4 sets of deadlift, around 12 to 15 on those sets. And then I have RDLs
Nice.
after, and then I have hamstring curls after, and then I have abs after. I'm telling you, that day is horrible. I feel like shit the next day, but it seems to work so well for me. Heads up, I do not program this for anyone. So, dude, I've never given this to an athlete. I don't recommend it to any of my athletes or any of your athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked for me. I really enjoy it. It feels like it's like a mental thing for me. I lock in so hard that day, and it just makes meet days feel so easy. Like I know after meet days, you're hitting all these heavy exertions, but for me, like after Raleigh, for example, I felt so good the day after. Like I was like, okay, I've done this so many times, but with back down work, and I'm hitting my heaviest deadlifts, like 370, 380 kilo after massive back downs on squat and bench. So my deadlift, I don't even taper the deadlift. It just peaks like crazy because I don't do back down work. And if I'm doing back down work on a week 4 and I'm still pulling 380, then on
Yeah,
meet day,
that's
oh
insane.
shit, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna feel even better. So, yeah, that's the total weekly, I guess, hours in the gym. So I'll average like 6 for the SBD, like I said. I'll throw in, let's say, 2.5 each and every day. So that's like 10. That's like, so what's 15 to like 18 hours roughly a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my go-to, I
That's a
guess.
long time.
Yeah, I
I don't
don't
know.
recommend.
It's always crazy to me because like I think like everyone has like such a different like training approach and like how they prefer to train. It's like oh, clearly like you're spending more time in the gym but training less often, and I think that's really common for a lot of powerlifters because the nervous system fatigue after heavy training tends to be really, really intense. And, if you're out of the gym, you're in that parasympathetic state for longer and relaxing. And as opposed to like if you're doing like, mini sessions, like you're doing like, many, even just like a 30-minute accessory session, like you're still getting in that sympathetic state and that pulls you out of that state of recovery. I think if you look at most powerlifters, like I don't think like I think 12 to 18 hours is like the average, depending on the training volume means how strong that they are, how much accessory volume that they are doing. Um, and as you get stronger and stronger and stronger, it gets worse and worse and worse. That is the trade-off of getting stronger. So in regards to like accessory work, because like with how strong you are, like do you have periods where like you periodize your accessories and you're pushing those harder, being like more volume, or are you kind of always pushing accessories quite hard?
So I always push accessories quite hard, except for the final block leading up till meet day. So today, for example, I capped my isolation, so triceps and lateral raises at RP like 8.5 to a 9. I usually go to a 10 and then I drop set everything. But today I'm not going to do it. It's a week 1, it's a deload week. So for this entire block, I'm going to cap all like isolations out and make sure all compound accessories are capped at like a 6, maybe a 7 RP. But usually every block before this, RP 10 or more through drop sets or some sort of way to get more load in there. But yeah, I usually go pretty hard on my accessories, except for week 1s, I pull back like RP like 8, and then week 4s, I pull back to RP like 7. But the week 3s and 2s, those are failures. And I like to progress and I track every weight, especially for dumbbell press, like flat dumbbells. That's like my favorite accessory for chest. Yes, it's not like the most, I guess, optimal in terms of like the fatigue, but it's something I enjoy. And if you enjoy it, you're gonna end up pushing it harder. So I like to do top sets on those, and then I'll keep the back downs a little more sub max. But yeah, generally all isolations RP 10 or more, compounds RP 9-ish, except for week 1s and 4s where I pull back just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's I ask because I usually find that for my stronger lifters, like because the systemic fatigue is higher, like I can't program in as many accessories, or like as wide a variety of accessories and gets to like more like condensed of like this is what I think is going to help move like your squat, bench, and deadlift forward. This is like the more like the minimum effective dose for seeing muscle growth. But everyone is is different. I like how you mentioned that you pull back actually on the accessory intensity on your week fours. I think that's a really smart strategy, especially with someone who's lifting as heavy weights and pushing the back down sets as hard as you are. And by pushing harder on your accessories earlier on in the training blocks, you're likely retaining more of your fitness doing that because of how light you have to go on your SPD to drop fit fatigue. And obviously, we don't know that muscle mass is a huge part of getting stronger. And I think that as far as like you're pretty jacked for being like you're pretty tall for being 83, right? You're like 5'10".
No, hell, I wish I'm 5'8".
Yeah, that's tall for in 83. Um, and you're incredibly strong at this like height, and it's wild. Is that as you think about it, it's like you should be in the 93, like
Yeah.
long term. And so it's like this is what you're hitting at like 83. Like that's pretty crazy. Do you work with like a nutrition coach, or do you have like any sort of like periodization to like how you do have your nutrition? Because like as far as what I've seen, it's just kind of been like a slow bolt constantly,
Yeah.
or for you.
So right now, well, not right now, but I've never worked with a nutrition coach. I do all my nutrition on my own end. I'm pretty well versed in nutrition. I've taken so many courses in college for my kinesiology degree, because we can take certain courses in different fields within the degree for the electives. And I just stacked on all the nutrition courses I could. I found it interesting. I found it easy to understand. It just came naturally to me. So I just packed down like I think 5 or 6 nutrition courses, like all different types as well. So I think I'm well versed, and obviously my myself or own research that I took to the side. But yeah, I think nutrition is very easy to get down. It just, like I said, comes naturally, and then yeah, just the way I like to. I don't periodize it either. I just do slow bulk, like you said. But then obviously, like during the holidays, for example, I'm going to be a little more lenient. I might go up in body weight just through like water retention, gut mass, amount of food that's in my body. But after that, I'm always locked back in. I eat very consistently. Big advocate for like whole foods, like I said. But yeah, I keep it very consistent, and it's very easy to lock down my nutrition.
Yeah, it just becomes like a habit eventually. So like, how long do you plan on staying at like 83 for before you consider moving up?
Not for a while. Like today, for example, I was 83.3, so I'm very light right now.
Yeah.
And the day before, like I've been between 83 and like 84 and a half all ever since Raleigh, right? And matter of fact, like the weight I woke up at today was the same body weight that I cut from for the Arnold, which I was 75 for. So like I have not gained too much overall mass in terms of like body weight, but I've definitely put on more muscle mass.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not going to move up until I can't make the weight class anymore. And I think I could. I have another. I've first of all, I've been leaner as well, so I can cut like I have like 5, 6, 7 pounds of pure body fat that can actually be muscle mass on my frame, and then I can actually make water and gut cuts all the way down from like 87 kilo. So I have another like honestly like 5, 6 kilo of pure tissue that I can put on my frame by losing, like I said, body fat and also making those acute cuts down to the weight class. So I'm a couple more years at least,
Yeah.
unless I have to move weight classes to like Sheffield, for example, if like the 83 record is higher than 93 or something. But I don't see myself maxing out this class for I don't know, maybe my whole career. Like I don't think I see myself putting on 6 kilos of muscle mass on my frame. I'm almost like at my genetic limit or something. I don't know, but maybe in the future we'll see.
I think it's always funny when people like are like they did bulk really fast and then they're like, oh my gosh, I got so much stronger. I'm like, it's because you lean on things and then move easier now because you weigh more. It's not because like you actually built muscle, but I think that's one of the things that powerlifters do need to focus on a little more is like the body comp side of things and really optimizing that because a lot of times I like what you said. It's like there's a range of like everyone who like they can like feel good and normal at and strong and like and they recover. And it's a lot of that's genetic, but a lot of times you can modify that by having good habits. And I think that for someone who is like, I need to go up a weight class, it's like I always like first look at what your nutrition habits like though, like right now. Do you know how to like have you ever done like a natural structured cut or do you know how to like eat protein or like these little basic things before you even consider moving up a weight class because I do think it's really important to like fully max out body comp. Like at my best meet at like I'm 5'11", and I cut down from like 196 to 181 for my meet, and like I still pulled like I got 551 squat, 358 bench, and a 722 deadlift for like a dot for 500 dots, and like that's like me at like pretty lean 196, and it's like it can be pretty exciting though if you like understand how to augment your body composition. You're like, oh my gosh, like there's so much progress. And a lot of times, like it's just about understanding that you have to pay attention to that long term, especially, which is why I don't like it when like I'm like I encourage my athletes to not even worry about like their weight class. Like just eat, get stronger, train hard, have these good habits, and you're probably going to end up over time where you should be, because like in studies that they've done on people where they give them like no nutritional intervention at all, and they start lifting weights, they just gain weight. It's just what happens.
I agree. I agree because your energy expenditure is going to go up, muscle mass is going to go up. You're going to eat more. So yeah, like I think most lifters, especially newer lifters, should not worry about weight classes. I actually don't advocate for cutting or bulking. Like just walk in whatever you're at. Even if you're 5 pounds over the other weight class, like don't even cut those 5 pounds. Just have fun. And as you become more intermediate and advanced, then you can start worrying about cutting weight, or if you want to break some records, you can cut down, break those records, or bulk up, break those records. But yeah, I'd say for like 90% of lifters, they should not be worrying about moving up or going down weight classes. Just prioritize nutrition, lock that in first. Obviously, work with a coach and see like, okay, am I too lean? That's probably not the case. Like 99% of people are not too lean, especially in America. We're not too lean here. But yeah, I think for the mass majority, just focus on optimizing your diet, clean foods, make sure you're eating enough protein, micronutrients, even supplementation if you need. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, I love it. That's the last thing I want to ask you about is you're experiencing working through and around injuries, because at every powerlifter's career, they're going to encounter setbacks. And one of those is usually going to be injuries, and they can be extremely mentally defeating, especially depending on like how long it actually takes you out of the gym, how much you have to like reduce down training load. Like I know that you've had some back tweaks and whatnot. What has your experience been working through and around injuries and coming back even stronger?
It was a rocky experience the first time around. So my initial injury was before the Arnold, and it was nothing acute either. It was very, very weird. It's not like I pulled something and I was like, oh shit, my back. Like no, like I think it was I was overly fatigued or something because like I kept pulling, at least my deadlift. I was pulling, getting stronger, stronger. And it was my last heavy single of the week or of the entire prep actually, and it was like a 751 pull. And I was cutting too because I was going to 75. So I overexerted myself. I pulled it. I felt fine. There was no pain or like anything. And then I went to my back down work and I couldn't do it. I dropped it to 4 reps, couldn't do it. Went to 3 reps. I can do that, but it was like I felt like inhibition in my legs, but there's still no pain, no sciatica, no nothing. I was like, okay, this is very, very strange. And then a week out, I tried to do my last taper single. It was like 661, and I failed a 550 warm up. And I was like, there's no way I'm cooked. So I didn't deadlift from basically my last big single, which was 2 weeks out at the time. And I don't do this anymore. I don't do big peaks and tapers. I train into meets now. But at the time, I was doing my big peak 2 weeks out, taper for 2 weeks, compete on the platform. And I basically couldn't deadlift after that big 751 deadlift 2 weeks prior to the meet. Back was done. I just felt like crazy inhibition, a little bit of soreness, but it wasn't like anything was snapped or popped or anything. It was very, very strange. And then I rehabbed my way, whatever rehab I could have done in 2 weeks. I got to the platform, took a buttload of like ibuprofen and acetaminophen, and then uh, just prayed a little bit. And I ended up squatting like my PR, which is 628. And then after that squat, my back was just cooked. Like I felt my back actually seize up and it was actually painful. Bench press wasn't affected too much, even though it did hurt to get into that extended position. But I was still able to bench a PR. It was like 447. And then deadlift, I was on track for like an 840 total. I did my second attempt deadlift. I grinded it out. I was like, okay, I'm cooked right now. I'm not going to be able to do the goal I wanted. But I ended up totaling like 820 at 75. And I won the Arnold, and I was very happy about that. And my back was cooked; it was destroyed. And then After that, for 11 weeks, I was basically just trying to rehab it, going through as much range of motion, a lot of steps, 10 to 12,000. I ramped it up. I pulled back in intensity, pulled back volume on the squat and the deadlift. Bench, I was actually able to progress that and just use all my recovery resources for the pressers and for the upper body musculature. I just hammered my accessory work, hammered like quad extensions, stuff that I can do, and just let my body naturally heal by going through range of motion, getting that blood flow in the areas, deep tissue massages to help alleviate some pain and be able to get through movements. I'm not saying deep tissues like they don't heal you by any means, but they do help the mentals by, like I said, reducing that acute pain. So you're able to go through range of motion to increase range of motion and
Right.
get through the rehab work that you should be getting. Same thing with like ibuprofen and anti-inflammatories, painkillers. I don't recommend them for long-term usage, but if you have to use it acutely before the session to get through the session, by all means do so. But after the session, definitely no. I do not recommend anti-inflammatories. That's just going to reduce recoverability. Things like same thing with like ice baths. I'm very like anti-inflammatory things because inflammation is blood. Blood is nutrients. You're not going to heal without that unless it's like so painful to the degree where like you can't sleep or it's overly inflamed. Obviously, seek a doctor first. But this is my like non-medical advice, gym bro science to an extent. But yeah, that's what I did for 10 weeks, just increasing range of motion, increasing tolerability, slowly increasing tonnage and volume, going from deadlifting legit like one plate off a deficit to decreasing the deficit, pulling one plate off the floor, two plates, three plates, four plates. And along the way, I was doing things like suitcase carries for the oblique work, a lot of planks, a lot of ab rolling, leg raises, Jefferson curls. Okay, Jefferson curls. I swear that I healed my back. Jefferson curls, they worked amazing for my lower back, and because I was experiencing some sciatica and like I said, inhibition in the legs. Squat wasn't too affected. It was only affected like at the very bottom portion of the hole because I do have some sort of a flexion in the lower back as I hit the hole because my super wide squat stance is like the only way I hit depth. But still, squat wasn't too bad. I was able to push that a little bit. I mean, I was actually able to push rep PRs on squat. I just couldn't handle the top end intensities. So I was still PRing in a sense. I was hitting like sevens and eights with some max loads, still PRs. So that's what I did for, like I said, 10 to 11 weeks. And then I basically had one block of kind of healthy training leading up to Raleigh. Oh, not Raleigh, my bad. Junior Nationals. And I felt stronger than ever. I was getting stronger by the week, felt amazing. And then at Junior Nationals, as you can tell, my back actually, I felt a pop at my back on my third attempt squat, but I don't think it was like an injury in the sense of like anything severe. I think it was a small tweak that coincided with like a normal like gas pop in your spine. Like you twist your back, you can pop it, or like you foam roll, you can pop
Yeah.
it. I think that was the sensation I felt, but that just coincided with a very very small tweak in my back, and I seized up and I could not deadlift whatever on that day on meet day at Junior Nationals. I ended up pulling up like 60 kilo or like the blue just not to bomb out because I tried pulling like three reds in the warm up room. It just wasn't happening. I took unhealthy amount of painkillers, and there was a physical therapist there. We're doing everything we can, and all I needed was like 600 pounds to win. Like if I pulled 600 pounds that day, I would have made it to Junior Worlds and hopefully broke the world record, made it to Sheffield, whatever. But I couldn't do it. Back was like I said, seized up on me on that third attempt squat that I ended up failing, and then yeah, after that, I actually rehabbed very fast. And of course, my mindset was horrible. I felt like shit. Like I was like, okay, my entire year of training just got derailed because I was planning on going to junior nationals, making junior worlds, breaking the open world record at junior worlds to make a wild card for Sheffield. And I was in the talk to SBD. They basically said, all right, that's a valid route. You can do that. And actually, after Raleigh, I basically asked, I was like, if I did this Raleigh performance at junior worlds, would I have made it to Sheffield? They're like, yeah, probably. So I was like, all right, whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, my entire basically year and a half of competition was derailed from junior nationals. I was in a horrible mindset, but I still had an opportunity right after because Pete Spence works for SBD. Actually, no, don't quote me on that. I don't think he works for SBD. He just like pairs with them. But he basically invited me to the SBD Raleigh meet as like a second chance. And I didn't know if I was gonna be able to compete or not because it was directly after I hurt my back. But then within a week, my back just miraculously felt way better, and I was able to deadlift like 606. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not that cooked. I didn't feel anywhere nearly as cooked compared to after the Arnold's after junior national. Like junior nationals, like I said, it was just a retweak. It wasn't really like a re-injury, and my back just seized up on the day, but it was nowhere near the pain and the inhibition and injury that I sustained after the Arnold, which is the initial injury, like I said.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I rehabbed it, and as the weeks gone on, as I got healthier and healthier, as the weights increased, my mindset got better and better. I started having more faith in myself and my coach and my training. And then on meet day itself, like at Raleigh, that's the day I felt the least amount of pain. Like I've always felt stiffness and pain and a little bit of inhibition um, after junior nationals, leading up until Raleigh. That like it was a very short turnaround. It was like maybe 8 weeks or something. I don't remember, but regardless, meet day itself was the best I ever felt, or at least in that injury period of time. And I ended up executing the day. And ever since Raleigh, I've been healthy. It's been 7 or 8 months now, so no pain, nothing like that. I've been smooth sailing ever since, and I basically just learned that I cannot be pushing my body and ignoring signs of fatigue because that's the original injury that I sustained before the Arnold. I was super fatigued. I just kept pushing because I was like, I want to win this $20,000 at the Arnold. Like it was a lot of money. I couldn't let that up. So I was like, I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep cutting, and that basically, bit me in the ass a little bit, and ended up getting injured. But I ended up winning regardless, like I said. But yeah, I learned a big lesson not to ignore the signs of fatigue and the importance of just like listening to my body. And there's always going to be another competition. There's always going to be another day. You don't have to go all out just because there's something high on the line or some high stake meet. Like even like if I didn't push myself before Arnold, I think I still would have won. Like clearly, I won by like 50 or 40 dots or something. Like I didn't even need to do that. I just wanted to make a statement. The ego got to me, and I just had to let that ego to the door, leave it there, and just like I said, listen to my body and not make those same mistakes twice.
I think there's a lot of good things there. Number one, I think that like a big takeaway is that you stripped down the weight to like barely anything. You were
Yes.
willing to do that. You're willing to do the bare minimum than what your body was letting you. And I think injuries do teach you the value of listening to your body and being okay with adjusting the plan because the programs are not perfect. Our bodies change. And if you're feeling overly fatigued or this pain or you're like overlappingly sore that's it's getting worse or it's causing some sort of pain or interference with your performance, it's okay to adjust the plan. You need to be willing to do that. Also embracing the process and being okay with ups and downs throughout that journey, and leaning on others for support throughout that time instead of just like being in your own head and being patient, having really good communication with people who are helping you through that. And then I think there's also just like having that sense of belief of like, hey, no, I can get back to where I was, and despite this setback, and I just need to be willing to adjust the plan and you know for you, and I'm also a Christian, like trust God and his plan and understand that there's a reason I'm going through this, and I got to learn, hey, if I want to be the best version of myself, I have a choice. Like I can let this keep me down, or I can keep moving forward and trust in the plan. And long term, it's like if you do those things, you're willing to adjust training and all that stuff. It's like there's no way that you're going to really fail if you don't let yourself. And like I dealt with a back injury. I've had a lat strain. I've had pec minor strains, shoulder issues, and all it's just done for me is really is just teach me lessons about okay, well, I can't push through this sensation. This is unproductive feeling. I need to make sure that I'm prioritizing blah blah blah. Or something is off with my lifestyle. I got to be willing to ask myself, am I willing to change that or not? And sometimes people aren't, and that's fine. That's their own choice. But if you want to get to your genetic potential, there's going to be some trade-offs that you have to make. And the reality is that if you stay true to the course and you're patient, like you can still PR and still have a very long and successful powerlifting career. Um, so I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it was really, really insightful. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and donating an hour of your time.
Of
If people
course.
want to follow you along, which they should, because it's wild seeing what your numbers are putting up, or hire you for your coaching services, where should they head?
So my Instagram is joe.borenstein. And then in that bio, you can see my coaching page is linked up there. It's P4P_coaching. I have a website as well. There's my Google form for the athlete inquiry is in all three places. So my website, my main page bio, and my coaching page bio, or just DM me on my coaching page. I wouldn't recommend DMing my main page. I do not see a lot of messages. I get so many DMs. So for a fast, quick, and like seamless contact, hit up the coaching page and fill out the coaching form, or just give me an email that also works. But yeah, I really do appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a pleasure. Had some good conversation. I went in depth pretty pretty well on my training and all that. Hopefully, I didn't bore people out with all the sciencey stuff. But yeah, man, thank you.
Powerlifters are nerds, so I think you're good. All right, I'll make sure I include all of those details in the show notes. And thank you guys for listening. Talk to you guys in the next episode.